Okay, hi. Today we're starting a new series on my channel where I ask the question, are these authors one-hit wonders? Now, I don't mean a one-hit wonder for you or a one-hit wonder for the publishing industry. I'm being selfish and I mean a one-hit wonder for me. So basically, I read a lot of new-to-me authors very frequently, and then I don't really go back and read any of their backlists or read their upcoming books, and so I might read a book that I love or really enjoyed, and then I don't really give the author a second try for quite a while. So the goal of this series is to kind of stop myself from doing that and then find authors I like where they're repeat successes. When I originally filmed the clips that are coming, it was supposed to be for like a longer term vlog where I was going to be reading a lot of books from different authors. However, long-term projects end up being like 50-minute long videos, which if you enjoy that type of content, I don't really enjoy watching that type of content. I prefer shorter bites. That is what I'm attempting to give to you right now. So some of it might kind of seem weird what I cut to. I don't remember if I even said it. This one is about Sarah Waters, and let's cut. Sarah Waters. I read Fingersmith maybe last year, and while I wasn't obsessed with it, I was intrigued by it. It was a little too long for me, but some of the scenes, man, when you get to that plot twist and your protagonist ends up in a certain place, it was intense. So I own a few of her books, but I will probably, if I do get to her for this project, I will probably read Affinity. It sounds like it has the plot I'm most interested in reading. Okay, so I decided to pick up first Affinity by Sarah Waters. I had read Fingersmith in the past, and I liked it, but I wasn't obsessed with it. I thought it was really well done. I'm about 100 pages in. Plot. This is about a young woman who attempts to commit suicide and then is in recovery in 1874 Victorian England. And as you may assume, there's not a lot of understanding about depression and things like that. So she is a woman of some sort of wealth, and she starts going to a prison to interact with the inmates, which is apparently a thing that they did at the time to like give them company, give them role models to look up to. And she develops a relationship of sorts with one of the women there who is a seance and is into the spiritual realm. This book is like historic fiction, but it's leaning towards some sort of magical spiritual realism things happening. I have a feeling nothing's happened on the page, but it's been discussed and alluded to. One thing I like about Sarah Waters, which I saw in Fingersmith and I see here, is just the writing is, like, people like to use the word atmospheric, and this definitely is atmospheric. It's a very gothic atmosphere, which I really love, and it's just so immersive. I'm listening to this one as an audiobook, which I almost wish I would listen to Fingersmith as an audiobook, because just the way the narrator, Juanita something, I'll link her name, narrating this, articulating this, I really love. I'm just like kind of falling into the groove of listening to it. It's quite enjoyable so far. I'm really enjoying it. The conversation around her visiting the prison. There are interlude chapters from 1972 that are like they teeter on mixed media. There's articles and stuff, and they're about the seance woman. I think I'm saying the right word here. I like that Sarah Waters explores relationships between women. I think that an interesting theme is this relationship between women with different power dynamics. In Fingersmith, it was between a rich woman and her maid, who was also a thief. So there was like the maid mistress kind of scenario, and then there was also like this good versus like thieving, like debaucherous woman, which I guess how it's presented on its face. And this explores the relationship between a woman of means and a woman in a prison who's being constantly guarded, doesn't have, like, has a lot of rigidity to her, but at the same time, the woman with the freedom is also the one is kind of held back by her own mind, whereas the woman in prison, her mind is what kind of keeps her going and keeps her alive in this prison. So it's an interesting dichotomy in itself, and then it explores a dynamic between two people, which I also find quite interesting. But I appreciate the writing quite a bit. I think that's what really gets me super immersed. There's something about her writing style that I can really just like settle into and feel very comfortable in. There's something lyrical and descriptive about it, but at the same time it's to the point. And then when you're in your protagonist's head, like you're very deep in the moment of things, so you're experiencing a lot of the senses that your protagonist is feeling. I think that another thing that is very immersive is like the casual way in which Sarah Waters alludes to things that occurred and just the way things were for women during this time period. They're bringing prisoners in, new ones at some point, and they're going through all of their crimes, and some of them were things like thievery, but one of them was for getting an abortion. I don't know, there's something about how she writes about these like traumas that women have faced that like make me feel very claustrophobic, that especially comes into play at the twist in Fingersmith. It's almost like hard to read because like it's just so hard to imagine that type of autonomy being like taken from you. Anyway, I'll check in later. Okay, I just finished part 3 of this book, so I'm nearing the end, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit more before I finished it because there's just so much going on with this book. There's a lot of thematic content it explores, quite a bit more of the stuff I kind of talked about at the beginning. I think that one thing Sarah Waters does really well is explore different power dynamics, like the relationship between women that are in that has a power dynamic involved, but you don't really feel the power dynamic. I don't know, there's something very subtle about it. It's like both of them have power over each other in different ways, and both of them have vulnerabilities to each other, so it's almost like the power structure around them melts away when they're together in some capacity. Part 2, I think, is a little bit slower. You're learning a lot of things. Part 3 picks up a bit, and then part 4, I'm like, let's finish the book. There's, I think, another thing that I didn't touch on that this book really explores is it's an exploration of loneliness and how that presents itself and what it looks like. The loneliness of your two protagonists, the loneliness of the people around them, of the women mainly in their lives. I think that it also kind of touches on, your mental health, obviously, because the woman, what is her name? Margaret attempted to commit suicide before this book started, and now she's being like quote unquote treated, but she's obviously not being treated well. This is the 1800s. They didn't really understand what depression was, and she's being fed downers and opiates, laudanum, things like that, pretty frequently to help her, and she has almost an addiction to them. Well, she does have a physical addiction to them, that's very apparent. It doesn't really discuss that in a whole lot of detail, but then how the seances from, what is her name? The seances that Selena does, there's a point where she describes them, and it kind of is described in a way that is reminiscent of like someone's elation with drug use, but it might also be like sexual elation. The seance parts are very strange. There's a lot of sexual overtones to it. I don't quite understand them. Just wanted to check in before I'm done on some of the other thematic content, but it's just, I don't want to make this too long, but there's just so many things that are being explored here, so much that's being said. Really interesting. Looking forward to seeing how this ends. I'm not hopeful it's going to be happy. So I just finished this, and wow. It's hard to talk about without any spoilers, but I will just say that Sarah Waters' plots take turns that you're not expecting, and I'm still kind of reeling from it. I think in terms of what this project is, I really enjoyed it. I might have enjoyed it more than Fingersmith. I did like that book, but it might be because this one was a bit shorter. It might be because I really liked the audio book, but I just really liked this book. I don't think she's a one-hit wonder. I am eventually going to read all of her books. There was so much heartache and just, oh man, like this book just gave me the feels really hard. And yeah, so now I'm going to have to figure out what I'm reading next, but Sarah Waters is definitely on my hit list in a good way. Okay, so those were my final thoughts on Sarah Waters' Affinity. It has been about a week since I read it at this point, and I still echo all of the sentiments that I expressed throughout this video. I really enjoyed it. It's interesting because that is actually not one of her more famous books, and I am curious for people who are Sarah Waters fans, which books of hers do you think I should read next? And then what other authors do you think I should cover in this series? And did you enjoy this? Or are you going to watch the rest of the series as I do this? But anyway, that's all I got for this video. And until next time, happy reading.